Sound check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Ludden. I'm a reporter at the Arizona Agenda, and I'll be the moderator of this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. All registered voters can vote in the general election, which will be held on November 5th. The voter registration deadline is October 7th, and early voting begins on October 9th. Voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by emailing debates@kc-a.com. You can send a text to 408-840-8350, or you can call 480-937-1253. We may not get to all audience questions, but we will certainly do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from candidates in Legislative District 27, which covers most of Northwest Phoenix, Peoria, and Glendale. We'll be hearing first from the candidates in the House by party, who will debate their opponent for approximately an hour. Only the candidates currently debating will appear with their cameras and microphones on. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates in the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. All right, let's go ahead and introduce the candidates. In the House, voters get to vote for 2 candidates. The candidates are Republican Lisa Fink, Republican Tony Rivero, and Democrat Deborah Howard. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for the opening comments. Closing comments will go in reverse order. All righty, so Ms. Fink, will you start your opening remarks, please?
Well, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Lisa Fink, and I'm running as a Republican candidate for the Arizona State House of Representatives in LD27. And just to kind of give you a little bit about who I am, I have lived in the district for about 30 years. I'm married. I have had 6 kids. I've raised all of them in District 27. And I've had many opportunities to serve in various ways that I believe will make me a good representative for LD27. Some of the things is I'm familiar with education. I'm board president of a charter school. I have served as a member and chairman of the Arizona State Constitutional Commemoration Committee. I am a member of Mommy Lobby AZ and also president of the Protect Arizona Children Coalition. And some of those things, in particular, we advocate to strengthen parental rights, school choice, data privacy for students, and to stop comprehensive sexuality education. And so I look forward to the opportunity to be able to serve and to represent LD27.
Thank you. Ms. Howard, you're up next whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks. I'm Deborah Howard, and I am running to be your representative here in Legislative District 27. My career has been in the world of politics and policy at the federal, the state, and the local level. I worked on a range of issues as diverse as trade and defense, aging and healthcare, education and labor, among others. Since moving here to Arizona in 2017, I've been involved with advocacy, at the state level, and I focus primarily on education, fair redistricting, and reproductive freedoms, including the right to an abortion without political or religious interference. I do look forward to the conversation this evening, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Nicole, for hosting this.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Rivera, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. My name is Tony Rivero. I'm a native of Peoria. I attended Peoria High School, Glendale Community College, and later on in life, I attended ASU West. I'm married. We have 5 children, and we call Peoria home. We've always called Peoria home. A little bit about my background. I served as a Peoria City Council member. I did a term of 4 years where my focus was fiscal responsibility, less taxes, and reducing the size of government. Then after that, I served 3 terms at the state legislature, 2 of those terms as the chairman of the International Committee, And there, I also continue the work of controlling the size of government, making sure that government lives within its needs, and also representing the constituents as best as I could. My goal for the next 2 terms, if I am elected by the citizens, is to continue to being an advocate for less spending, less taxes. And the reality is middle-class families and poor families are struggling because it's too expensive to live in the state of Arizona. It's too expensive to live in this country. So I'm going to be a watchdog for the citizens, and I look forward to serving District 22. And I'm also running as a team with Lisa Fink, and we look forward to representing the citizens of District 27.
All righty. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move into the debate portion. The first question is a very popular voter question this year, but very important. So let's get it out of the way. Do you agree that President Joe Biden won the 2020 election in Arizona? Please explain your answer. And Ms. Howard, you're up first for this one.
I do think that President Joe Biden was fairly elected by all the voters. He won the state by, I think it was 10 or 11,000 votes. And he won the Electoral College. And I am a advocate and a champion, actually, of the elections here in Arizona. And I think our elections are free and fair. They are safe and secure. And most importantly, the count is accurate. And I believe that those people who seek to cast doubt about the legitimacy of our elections after more than 60 lawsuits have failed to uncover any level of fraud that has any measure of impact, and the outcome are in fact advancing a personal and partisan agenda that undermines democracy as a whole and is quite disreputable.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivero?
I do believe President Biden won the election.
Okay, short and sweet. Ms. Fink?
Well, I have to say I do question because there were many irregularities amongst that, and a lot of voters had concerns. And the fact is that we weren't able to really, Maricopa County and that being able to audit it and to make sure it's verifiable. So I believe what we need to do is to make sure that voters can trust the elections. And right now, a lot of voters do not, and that does not bode well for Arizona or for the United States.
Yeah, Ms. Howard, if you want a quick 30 seconds.
I want to address that. The reason voters are having distrust about the elections is that we've spent 4 years with people in positions of public presence who have undermined that. And I just want to go back. There have been 60 lawsuits. There are now lawyers who are disbarred from bringing those lawsuits. And, judges who were appointed by the former president who rejected the calls that the election was at all suspicious. And so to say that there's suspicion and people don't trust the election while people are making that argument on the evening news every single night is disingenuous. And so I think we have to, as an elected official, as somebody running for this office, I think one of our commitments is we have to be honest. And if the election was free and fair, safe and secure, end of conversation, move on.
Okay. We're going to move on to a different topic here, also very important to Arizona right now. Do you believe Arizona's K-12 public education system as a whole is adequately funded? If not, how much more should the state spend? And do you have any ideas on raising money, any solutions to propose? Mr. Rivero, you are up first for this question.
There has to be accountability in education. Obviously, Arizona has an opportunity to improve its education standing, but I'm very proud of what the state has done recently. I believe poor families and middle-class families should have an opportunity to take their children, the students, to a school of their choosing, a school that is appropriate for them and a school that makes them feel comfortable. So is there room for improvement? Yes. As a state legislator, I'm looking forward to meeting with the superintendents, looking forward to meeting with the school board members to see where we can collaborate. But the reality is, I think the options that are being put in front of parents, especially parents who are middle-class families, parents who are in poor families. The options that the state offers to them, including ESAs, makes Arizona stronger and makes our educational system stronger.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fink?
Right now, we have increased, it has 4 or 5 years, 20% to education. Unfortunately, we have not seen an improvement in academic achievement at all. And so we do know that the schools have, I think it's about $1.6 billion right now in reserves. And so we just need to be accountable. We've seen a huge increase in administration. And I think more money needs to go into the classroom percentage-wise, because the percentage of monies that are going into the classroom has gone down. So right now, my personal opinion is that we need to see where the money is going, and how come we're not seeing an increase and a benefit from the previous increase in funds.
Okay, Ms. Howard?
Hey, well, I disagree with my Republican candidates here. I think universal public education is something that every Arizonan, in fact, every citizen of the United States, values. It is what creates the common ground that keeps our society together. And despite this shared value, for decades, politicians here in Arizona have allowed Arizona to be a policy playground for anti-education zealots. And so I don't think, I actually think Arizona education is doing remarkably well, given the fact it's been under attack for 20 years. So the first thing I would do when I'm elected is I would reset our commitment to public education. And that is twofold. That first of all, it is the foundation that brings our social contract, creates that common ground that brings us together as a civil society. I believe it is the number one role of state government, and that we should do what it takes to do it right. And I think that 92% of all Arizona families send their children to Arizona schools, and I think we should respect that. And then the second reason I'm going to want to reset that is I think education is the pathway for us to get to the promise we make for ourselves every time we repeat the Pledge of Allegiance, which ends with these words, with liberty and justice for all. And I don't know of any way where we can get to that promise without a platform of public education. And so I view a tax on public education as an intentional and intrinsically linked, I'm not sure that's the word I'm looking for, on democracy itself. And then secondly, education is where children learn and discover their own interests and passions. They learn what they're good at and what they want to do, and the world around us and their place in it. And we want them to have the freedom to discover and choose and develop that for every child, for no matter where they live, no matter when their families arrived here or the color of their skin. And so then the third thing I'd say is, believing that, what I've just said is I would then fund it like we mean it. We should pay teachers a salary that doesn't force them to take a second or a third job. We should support the campus itself with counselors and bus drivers and cafeteria workers and supportive staff, so it becomes a place of learning as opposed to a place where we're trying to knit together the pieces that don't quite fit there. And I'll stop there because I'm sure I'm over time.
Yeah.
But if we want to get to accountability, we'll get to vouchers, right?
Okay, that's actually my follow-up question, so we will get there. Ms. Fink, if you wanted to respond, go ahead.
Yes, I would. One of the things she says, the school is important. My thing is that the family is the most important, and that in state law, it states in ARS 1-601 and 602 that parents have the ultimate authority over the education of their children. And so, as a mother of 6 children, the school was to help support me in my efforts. I chose what I wanted for my children, to support my efforts for them to learn and to be able to achieve their desires and to be able to be successful. And so therefore, I think that's the difference in our perspective is, that government schools are the way to help children. And I say, they may help. They do help. I mean, but I believe the ultimate authority is with the parents. And that is what we need to do, is to support the parents in their unalienable right and their, and also their duty to raise their children.
Okay, thank you. That was about exactly 1 minute. Mr. Rivero, I see a hand. We haven't heard much from you, so go ahead.
Okay, Nicole, I'll be brief. I would like to clarify, I support public education. I support teachers. I don't believe the only answer to improving education is money. So as I mentioned earlier, I look forward to collaborating with the school boards, with the superintendents to improve public education. But I don't think just adding more money to the budget without accountability and seeing results is the answer.
Okay, fair enough. And Ms. Howard, if you want to make a quick remark there, so we can move on.
I do. And I just want to say, I don't disagree with Lisa that parents have the primary responsibility for raising and educating their family, their children. I do think, though, that the role of public education, as I stated, is that it is the basis on which we knit together the social contract in which we live together as a society. And so it's fine that as a parent, you say, this is how I want to educate my children. It is not fine to do that in a way that dismantles public education for the remainder of every other child in the state. And so it's like, I absolutely respect your right to choose whatever education is correct for your child. But at the same time, you are still obligated, we are still obligated to each other to create this solid foundation of education, public quality education for every child in the state. And I'll be quiet on that now.
Okay, thank you. While we're talking about education, it's very hard to talk about that in the state without talking about ESAs. One voter wants to know, what is your stance on the recently implemented school voucher program in Arizona? And as a state legislator, would you try to make any changes to the existing voucher program? And I believe Ms. Fink, you're up first.
Okay. No, I support ESAs. And again, that goes back to who has the fundamental right over the education of their children. And we found that ESAs actually, it's half the cost of what each normal public education, the district schools receive. It's $15,000. So, and the Department of Ed has done a good job in putting in some accountability measures. And I believe it's one of the ways that we can help, again, that I call it the free market, and being able to improve education as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivero.
I support ESAs, and I believe it gives an option to poor families, to middle-class families who are concerned about the education of the children. It gives them an option to move from a school that is failing to a letter A school. So as I mentioned, I look forward to hearing concerns that are focused on the ESAs, but I support ESAs. And like I said, they give options to parents whose children are at our schools that are struggling, and they have an opportunity to move to a school that has a letter A standing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard.
So the school vouchers, as they were originally intended, were in fact used for specific circumstances that a child was not able to get the education, or they weren't able to have the level of attention or care that they needed in the classroom in order to advance. And so there was there was a voucher program that was established. I'm answering the question about what do I think about the universal school voucher program, and I want to say that it sucks. And Mr. Rivero and Ms. Fink have talked about the ability of parents, particularly low-income parents, to move their children from one school that they're not happy with to another, and that it's less expensive because the voucher is only $7,000 and the tuition for these private schools is $15,000. Well, that by itself says that it's not actually a tool for low income or middle class families that have that aren't already sending their children to public schools. So the use of the universal school voucher system that was expanded in 2022 has been used primarily by people who never sent their children to public school. And I look at that as a complete diversion of scarce public resources. And if I serve with Mr. Rivero, I would love him to look at that issue. If he is going to be the watchdog for making sure that public tax dollars and funding is accountable, this is a program that is right. It is a unfettered access to cash for ski trips and Lego sets and just recently dune buggies. I mean, the reform is just screaming out here. So I am not a fan of the expansion, and I absolutely understand that there are certain circumstances where students and families it will be right for them, but it is not serving the students that Mr. Rivero and Ms. Fink say it is.
All righty. We're gonna, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Go ahead, Ms. Fink.
Just a clarification, the 15,000 that I talked about was not referring to private education. That's actually from the state. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and switch topics here. Will you support HCR 2060 or Prop 314 as it'll appear on November's ballot, which would, to put it very simply, make it a state crime to be in the country illegally and require local law enforcement to enforce it? And why or why not? If you could explain your reasoning. Let's see, I believe Mr. Rivero, I think you're up first. I'm so sorry if I
You're making me first on each question. Look, I support border security in the state of Arizona. I believe that every sovereign country has a right to protect their borders, has a right to know who comes in and for what reason. Therefore, our country should secure the border and our state as well. This is a difficult issue. It's a complex issue, and unfortunately, cooler heads haven't prevailed. It's divided our state. It's divided our country. So I'm going to be supportive of any law that reduces fentanyl coming into our country, reduces crime. So this is a law that I look forward to studying. I don't have all the details. I didn't serve at the legislature. But if it's a law that's focused on improving border security in our state, it's focused on reducing fentanyl in our state, it's something that I could support.
So will you personally be voting yes for that measure?
Like I said, I haven't reviewed the law. I haven't studied the law, but it's something I will be studying before the ballots come out. So if it's focused on border security, making sure that the fentanyl is stopped in our state, that's something that I could support.
Ms. Howard?
Well, I have a different opinion. I think HR 2060 is wrong on multiple levels. I think we've seen this move before. This is SB 1070 on steroids, or 2.0, if you want to think of it that way. And it's wrong on multiple levels. It is unconstitutional. We don't get to stop people based on what they look like in this country. We just don't get to do that. We tried it. SB 1070 cost the state at this point over 100, and I think I get my numbers transposed. It might be 141. It might be 114 million dollars. And it's not stopped. I mean, we are still fighting lawsuits on that because of its illegality. And the other thing is that the immigrants come here to work, and they are the essential workers in our economy. They are in construction. And just to paint a picture of this, when the ship crashed into the bridge in Baltimore, I believe it was six construction workers who died were immigrants working on our infrastructure. They are our essential workers. They help our country stay working together. Immigrants comprise 17% of Arizona's labor force, 22% of entrepreneurs, 19% of STEM workers. It is wrong, and I will not only vote no against it, I will be advocating for every voter I talk to that they vote no on it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fink?
I will support it. I will tell you, I've knocked on thousands of doors, and the number one issue is border. And so in the U.S. Constitution, talking about constitutionality, in the U.S. Constitution, it says the federal government should be protecting our borders. But then it goes on in Article 1, Section 10, it says that the states can act if they're being invaded or in imminent danger. And I will tell you, most Arizonans that I've talked to believe that we're being invaded. And also the fact is that in imminent danger, Mr. Rivera referred to the fentanyl crisis. We are seeing deaths every day from that. And that doesn't include sex trafficking, human trafficking, which is abominable. And so therefore, this is the way the state can act. We can do that. And so therefore, because the federal government is not doing their job, and we have to protect our sovereignty. It is a national security issue. So therefore, yes, I will be voting for it. And because the state has the right to protect its borders according to the Constitution, because this federal government is not doing their job.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard, I thought I saw.
Yes, I do want to come to that, because it's the issue at the border. There are three components to this, and I too have heard voters talk about their concerns about what's happening at the border. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have to tease out that this is a complex issue. There are three tracks here. One is there is the economy. Mexico happens to be our number one trading partner here in Arizona. It's $1 billion relationship. You want to close down the border, that's going to do nothing but magnify negative costs. We'll all be paying $10 for an avocado at the grocery store, something along those lines. So there's that issue. We absolutely have to keep our trade relationship with Mexico open and moving. And then there's those who are coming here to work and those who are coming here to seek asylum. And both of that system is so deeply, deeply, deeply broken, and it has been broken, and Congress has failed to act. And I do have to put it back to the other candidates on this call, that your presidential candidate scuttled a Republican bill by Jim Langford that would have actually updated the immigration law. So some of these problems that we're trying to reconcile would have been mitigated. And instead, he wanted to keep it as a campaign issue. And so I urge every single one of us to stop playing policy or stop playing politics with people's lives. We can fix this problem. We know how to provide humanitarian assistance to those who are seeking asylum. We know how to expand the pipeline for those who are coming to work in our economy, and we know we need them. And when we do that, we will actually open up resources so that those who are harmed by human and drug smuggling at the border, which is coming across at the legal ports of entry in big trucks and on container ships, when we do that, then we can address the issues one by one, and really we will all just be in a much better place.
Okay, Ms. Fink, go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things is that, again, she did mention legal ports of entry. So and also with the Mexico and our trade with Mexico, they come through the legal ports of entry. So that's not going to be an issue. Also, the other thing is I want to make sure and clarify, I am for legal immigration. I'm not for illegal immigration. And that's this is what it's going to be referring to. If we need to do reforms in legal immigration, which actually is more at the national level than it is at the state level, then I'm for that. But to just allow this massive amount of illegals coming across, the crime, all that it's not good for Arizona.
Okay, and Mr. Rivero, I thought I saw your hand as well.
In response to Deborah, I support immigration. I support a strong relationship with Mexico. I was the chairman of the International Committee for the state of Arizona. And one of my biggest tasks was working on improving not only our relationship with the state of Sonora, but also Mexico. But the reality is the reason it's complex is because it's politics. And the reality is there's blame on both sides of the aisle. And Deborah, you used the example of President Trump. Well, the reality is I worked on John McCain's presidential campaign in 2008, and he and Senator Kennedy had a deal. And Senator Obama at that time scuttled that legislation. So there's blame on both sides. And the reason there's blame on both sides is because both sides benefit from the demagoguery and pandering to their voters. The reality is we do need security at the border. We need to address our labor shortages. And we also have to address the people who are here, who have been here for a long time.
I agree with
what's gone in the way is politics on both sides of the aisle. But I want to clarify my position is border security. We need to increase our guest worker programs to satisfy our labor needs. And we need to address the people who are here and be common sense about this. But the reality is it's been Democrats and Republicans who have failed our country on this issue.
I think I agree with, I'd have to play it back, but I think I agree with every single word that you said. And that's been 16 years. And going down the road of HR 260 is taking us backwards. And that's where this question started. And I stand by that. I continue to oppose that.
Okay. Speaking of November's ballot, another huge issue on the ballot this year is abortion. What are your thoughts on the Arizona Abortion Access Initiative? Will you be voting for it? Why or why not? And what kind of reproductive rights do you support and would try to enact as a state legislator? Ms. Fink, you are first this time.
Okay, I will be voting against it. Right now in Arizona, we have abortion up to 15 weeks. And then past that, in case if there's a mother's mother's life's in danger, there is that option as well. So 90% of Arizonans support that. This this initiative, I could go into many things that I have concerns with, but again, it takes away parental rights. If you have a minor daughter, I have 5 daughters, they could get an abortion without my knowledge. That's a problem. Also, the fact is that they don't even say it's a woman; they just say a person. So they don't even acknowledge that we are women. So, I mean, there's more to it that I have issues with. You know, you don't have to be a doctor to be able to say that a person can get an abortion. All the safety rails that we've had in place for victims of rape, of sex trafficking will be gone. So we're totally losing all of that. And this will allow abortion up to birth. I can't imagine that. And so therefore, I will be I will be voting against this initiative to expand abortion.
Okay, Ms. Howard.
No surprise. I have stated this. I absolutely will be voting for Prop 139. And I encourage anyone who believes that women who must have agency over their own bodies to join me. In fact, I go farther than that. I think there are 3 steps to protect a woman's right to reproductive freedom, including abortion, free of religious and political interference. We've done number 1. We've got it on the ballot. I think we have to pass it overwhelmingly. And step 3 is I think we have to flip the legislature to a pro-abortion majority, because the history of a 1-seat Republican majority legislature is they don't listen to the voice of voters. Voters tell them one thing and they say, that's not what we want to do, and they go do something else. So if in fact you absolutely believe that women have a right to reproductive freedom and you're going to support Prop 139, I ask you to also support me, because that will truly protect a woman's reproductive freedom in the legislature.
Okay, Mr. Rivero.
Thank you. I will be voting no on this. The reality is I support life. My most closest advisor in my life, in my campaign, and everything I do is my wife. And this is a conversation that she's had and that we've had together. And she believes in supporting life. We've had the same conversation with our daughters. They support life. Conversation with my mother and my sisters. They all tell me, Tony, we must do everything we can to preserve and support life. And that's one of the reasons I'm supportive of immigration. And the reality is because it's about family, it's about life, it's about children. And as a legislator, I'm going to do everything I can to preserve and protect life.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to another voter question. What will you do to address Arizona's housing and homelessness crisis? I know those are slightly different but interconnected issues. If you could cite specifics, that would be great. Ms. Howard, you're up first.
So it's not housing. First of all, I think there's a lot the legislature can do to make housing more affordable. And I think we absolutely owe it to those who are unsheltered to find the services, the wraparound needs that they have that we can, immediate shelter. They need immediate shelter. They need additional supportive services to kind of get their lives back in order. And on the affordable housing issue, I think there's so many, whether you're a home buyer, you're being pushed out of the private market by corporate hedge funds, essentially, who take who compete with families to buy the property and then use it to either short-term rental or other investment property, but they're not people who live in the neighborhood and they're not there. And it's created a big issue for housing here in Arizona. I think we've just cracked the top 10 most expensive housing, I think. And so I think we have to do that. And then, and for renters, they get sucked into the cartel of rental owners who are using AI or algorithms to both increase the rent and reduce the supply of housing. So on both fronts, it is a challenge, and I look forward to being in the legislature and trying to work away with this. I do think that the legislature has tried to do invest in the housing trust fund and to provide additional access to short-term or to expand the supply of housing. But it's not something that can happen overnight. But the fact that the system is actually being abused as a financial tool is something that the legislature can act on immediately.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivero, you're up next.
Okay. Thank you. I think there are some things that the legislature can do, and this is an area where experience counts and matters. I was the chief sponsor of the low-income tax credit at the state legislature. What low-income tax credit did was give developers some funding from the state and from the federal government to reduce their costs, therefore reducing the cost of homes and reducing the cost of rent as well. So that's a partnership that the state of Arizona could push, could enhance, and it's a program that is done in collaboration with the federal government. This program at the moment is implemented in the state of Arizona. It has reduced revenues, but the history of this idea comes from none other than Ronald Reagan, and it was pushed by Jack Kemp. So this is a good Republican idea that could reduce the cost of home, the cost of rental, and gives more people an opportunity to achieve their dream of having their home or having accessible rent.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Fink?
This is interesting because I was talking to a voter, and he was looking for another job to earn more money because he couldn't afford a home. He was living, had a landlord and was living with someone else. But his income was adequate probably 10, 15 years ago to buy a home. So one of the big things that we're having a problem with is inflation. And a lot of inflation comes from too much government spending, and we're printing too much money. So that's part of it. The cost of goods to be able to get and to make a home, and also the salaries and that have all increased. And so therefore that increases everything. And in particular, energy is the backbone of the economy. And our energy, unfortunately, we're shutting down plants and that power plants because of excessive government regulation. So I believe a lot of it is too much government in the sense of all the inputs into the housing, and also with inflation. And you talked about homelessness. That is a complex issue. A lot of it is with mental health, and we're not very good here in Arizona about that. Also with our veterans, we need to make sure they're suffering PTSD or whatever. And then the other thing you have to look at is that a periodic or they call it or episodic versus chronic homelessness, and then you do different things to be able to address those things as well. But they have found that just providing homes to the homeless isn't really helping them. There's more services and more needs there that are the root cause of their homelessness.
Okay. Ms. Howard, I see your hand up.
I do. I always have something to say. I want to talk about inflation being caused by too much government spending. Houses are not too expensive for families to buy because government spends too much money. It is not too expensive. Groceries are not expensive because government is spending too much money. These things are happening because there is a collusion of people who have access to these markets, and that they are colluding to increase rents. They're colluding to pull housing off the market. They're colluding to fix prices. These are things that are actually being investigated by Attorney General Chris Mays, and I'm proud of it. And I think I want to, by the old days, inflation is falling, crime rates are falling, border crossings are falling. These are facts. Climate emissions are falling, inequality is falling, energy production is growing. These are things that we should all say, oh my God, the economy is so good. And the reason that we don't is because there is a fundamental unfairness in the economy these days. And we need to reconcile that. And it's not because people aren't working hard. People are working really hard. The system is rigged, and we need to get back to the American deal where if you work hard, you can get ahead, not just, hold your own, but that there's breathing room, that you can, live your life, raise a family, build your future. Those realities are harder and harder, and it's not because government is spending too much money.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Fink.
Okay, so government is spending too much money because what it is that they're printing the money, and when you have more money, paper money, then there's more money chasing the same amount of resources. And so when that happens, it's basic economics, the prices increase, and we have seen that. We saw that actually after the Revolutionary War period. We had one of the greatest inflationary periods. We have seen it in other countries. France went through it. I mean, there's way back when. The history is that when the government spends and then they create more money, it causes inflation. Rome, same thing. It's all there. You just have to look at the history.
Can I say one more sentence?
Very quickly, please.
I'll stop. I'll control myself. I just want to say one thing. The government is us. We get to decide what the government buys and pays for and how it serves us. And I'll just leave it at that. The government isn't some other entity. It is us, and we use that to advance the values and the services that we need to serve all of us cohesively.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivera, go ahead.
Yes, I'll be brief. The reason why inflation and taxes and higher taxes are important, and it should be part of this conversation. I served as a city council member. Government is out of control to a certain point in regards to spending and taxes. Every year that I was on the city council, the bureaucracy wanted to increase utility rates, wanted to increase taxes. Why? Because it was more revenue for the local government, so they could spend more money. That happens at the local level, it happens at the state level, and it happens at the federal level. So someone who's living on a tight budget, that extra $25 that increase in their utility rates is going to make a difference, because not only are they paying $25 more on their utility rates, they're paying more for water, they're paying more for milk, they're paying more for gas. So all these small things do add up. I saw it firsthand on the city council, and I remember receiving calls from people who are on low incomes, on fixed incomes, telling me that these are the types of things that made a difference in their lives.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. Speaking of government spending, Arizona just went through a really complicated budgeting process where it had to cut and move around a significant amount of funding. Are there any specific infrastructure projects in your district that you would fight to get state appropriations for if elected? And Mr. Rivero, you were actually up first this time.
Okay. Well, I look forward to representing the citizens of District 27, and I would be representing citizens in the city of Phoenix, city of Glendale, and the city of Peoria. And I look forward to developing a relationship with those three governments to find out what their needs are. And if there are needs, and if it's within my power, I could help them on infrastructure projects. I look forward to collaborating with them. So, and that's what I am going to do, and I should do as a state legislator.
Okay, fair enough. Ms. Fink.
I have to kind of echo what Mr. Rivero stated. We have 3 different cities within our district, and so therefore it would need to be, talk with the various mayors and the local government to find out what are the needs. And if, it is appropriate or it's, within the power of the state to be able to help in those areas. But until we have that discussion, I can't say exactly, I'm going to do this, this, and this without knowledge and input from the local community.
Okay, Ms. Howard.
I will say I agree with both of the other candidates on this call tonight on that question most closely to any other question that we've asked, but I will add to that this is an amazing district. North to south, east to west, it is fundamentally a suburban residential district, interspersed with fabulous places for recreation and entertainment. And so clearly, what I think this is what the infrastructure question to me moves us into the environment, which is what we live. I can see the sky, the color of the sky, and that's not something that is normal. So I would say that I would be looking to advance an environmental agenda that protected our clean air. And one of the reasons we have expensive gas is we have a additive to the gasoline that makes our air cleaner. And that's just one piece of what government regulation is. It actually gives us cleaner air so that we don't have increased incidence of asthma and other respiratory diseases. So I think this is a fabulous district. I can't wait to represent it in the state legislature. And like Tony laid out, I think that I will trust our city councils here in the district to be the drivers for what specific infrastructure. But I know that we need water, and I know that we need clean air.
Okay, thank you. Clean Elections actually conducted a survey that found taxes are a primary concern for voters here. Do you think Arizona's tax codes need to be changed? And if so, how? Ms. Fink, you're up first.
Well, for me, we can reduce taxes. We need to reduce taxes. Again, that is what's going to help with reducing the cost of food, with all of that. This for the individual voter that lives in individual families. And so therefore, that's what I would go with, is what we can do, because government does not, it does not produce anything. It only takes. And so we need to be able to have more money in the economy, for private, we saw it with the Reagan tax cuts. Tax cuts went down, but revenues went up. And why is that? It's because the cycling of money. When taxes are low, more people are likely to spend. So they may go out to a restaurant. Well, then the restaurant needs to buy the foods for the local grocery or the local farmer, and on and on and on. And so therefore, I believe lowering taxes will actually help the economy and actually could increase tax revenue.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard.
I think the legislature, in order to get away from actually implementing a funding mechanism for public education, rewrote the entire tax code so that there is now a flat tax in Arizona of I'm going to say it's 2.5%, but I could be wrong. But I do think we have a flat tax, which means that the person who just bought the $17 million mansion in Scottsdale is paying the same tax rate as the store manager at the local Fry's. I don't think that there is cutting taxes is the answer to any problem we have here. I think every single taxpayer has the right to demand that taxes are used in the most accountable and transparent way, and they should hold legislators and public officials responsible for that. But there is absolutely no we've had 40 years. I was a Reagan appointee at the U.S. Department of Labor when I was a much younger woman. And we have had 40 years of anti-tax, anti-government, anti-regulation imaginings, and we know that it doesn't work. When we're talking about people who work 3 jobs and can't afford to pay rent, that's not a function of taxes being too high. That's a function that we have starved the people who deserve. We need to have a worker-based economy, and we need to stop catering ourselves and twisting ourselves into a pretzel to make the hedge fund uber rich happy.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivero?
I support lower taxes. I support looking at opportunities to lower taxes. And once again, I have the opportunity to serve at the city council and at the state legislature. And both of those roles, I took the lead on cutting taxes. I disagree with Deborah. Taxes do make a difference on people who are poor and the middle class. It certainly did when I was on the Peoria City Council, and it did make a difference when I was at the state legislature. And I also believe the process should be simplified and make it easier for people to file their own paperwork and not have to pay for expensive CPAs to do the paperwork for them.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more voter question. What will you do as a representative to make gun safety in our district a priority? Do you support background checks? Just thoughts in general on that. Miss Howard, you are up first for this question.
I can do that. I think every Arizonan should feel free to go to the grocery store, to go to school, to go to worship, a concert without fear of gun violence. We are always one moment away from someone with a grudge and a gun to rip apart our lives, and we don't have to live by this. We can work together to end gun violence and still respect the Second Amendment. The goal is to keep guns legal and away from children, terrorists, and criminals. Every single day in America, there are 120 people killed by a gun and hundreds more are wounded. The costs of that are immediate, subsequential, and people live with it for the rest of their lives. As I've been talking to voters, every Gen Z voter I talk to, when I ask them what was their moment of political awakening, it is always a mass shooter incidents. And they are familiar with the active shooter drills in their schools, the drills in their schools, and bulletproof backpacks. We do not have to live like this. We do not have to accept children and our citizens, our neighbors, being killed meaninglessly. We don't have to do this. So yes, I support gun checks. I support banning assault rifles, looking at the chain of custody, where from manufacturer to merchant, responsible gun safe storage. These are all practices that responsible gun owners endorse. The only people who don't endorse this are the advocates for the NRA. So yes, and I'm proud of my endorsement from both Everytime USA and as a gun sense designated candidate from Moms Demand Action.
Thank you. Mr. Rivero.
I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, and I think we have to look at the bigger issue, and that is strengthening families, addressing mental health. I think the Second Amendment has become a big political wedge issue between both parties, but I think the focus should be strengthening individuals, strengthening families, and addressing issues of mental health.
Okay, and Ms. Fink.
I have to second what Mr. Rivero said. The Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so that is an inalienable right to be able to protect your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I consider guns as a woman the great equalizer. If I have a 6'2", 6'3" man, and I'm not short, but the fact is that I could defend myself if I have a gun. I have done the concealed weapons permit training, and actually, what the left often leaves out is how many lives it saves for people that have actually a gun. They totally leave that out of the picture. So that's a problem. And then also, I remember hearing it was a juvenile. I'm not sure how to say it, but he was a judge over the juvenile court. And he did decide to do his own poll with this gun violence. And he found that all these kids, it's like 0.1%, were ones that had gone through like the Boy Scouts or whatever, or had gun training, when they were in their youth. So they were trained how to do, whereas the ones that weren't trained, the 99.9%, they were the ones that were problematic and had committed gun crimes. So along with Mr. Rivero's about the family and where the root cause is, I think that's important. And just taking away guns is not taking care of the root cause if there is gun violence. And so therefore, I support the Second Amendment. And again, as it says in the Constitution, it shall not be infringed.
Okay. Ms. Howard, I see a hand.
I just want to reiterate, I too support the Second Amendment. I don't own a gun, but my sister does. I'm not looking to take away her gun, but I'm not looking at the root cause of this. The root cause of people dying in classrooms is that we're not controlling our guns. So we're not practicing safe gun practices, and that's what we need to do. And we can do that.
Okay. On that note, we're going to go ahead and move to closing remarks. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. So, Mr. Rivero, if you want to go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity. I would like to thank Clean Elections for the opportunity to be hosted in this debate, also our moderator, and for everybody in attendance. I have a history. I served as a council member, and my focus was fiscal responsibility, less taxes, and taking off that burden off the taxpayer. And I did the same at the state legislature. And I'll continue doing that work if I'm elected to return to District 27. I represented a big part of Peoria in my previous role in District 21. But I think there is a stark difference between me, Lisa, and Deborah. Our records are different. We believe in different things. But the reality is our state is facing a lot of pressures in different areas, in the area of education, in the area of the border, in the area of spending. And we hear from it all the time from voters who are struggling to make ends meet. I don't believe adding more spending, increasing taxes to the state of Arizona helps the little guy. What I believe I'm going to do, if I am given the opportunity by the voters, is focusing on the middle class, focusing on the lower class, to reduce the burden of government, to improve education for them, because they're the ones that are being hurt the most by our government. So I look forward to representing, once again, District 27. I look forward to working with Mrs. Fink and winning and serving at the state legislature. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
Thank you. Hi, I restate, I am Deborah Howard, and I am running to be your representative here in Legislative District 27. I have appreciated the conversation this evening. It has highlighted many differences between me and the two Republicans running here. But I will I will make just 2 points. One, I am the only candidate in this race who will protect a woman's right to an abortion and other reproductive freedoms. If women's bodily autonomy is important to you and aligns with your values, please vote for me and vote for Prop 139. Secondly, my commitment to every constituent is this: I will listen to you. I will respect your voice and your vote, even when we disagree, maybe especially when we disagree, because we have important issues to address, and the best solutions will emerge when we listen to all voices, even those that we disagree with. And so I thank you again for your time tonight. And I thank you for tuning in. And I look forward to working together so we can build a better Arizona for all of us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Ms. Fink, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Clean Elections and Nicole, for your efforts here in this debate. I think the choice is very clear between Ms. Howard, and then also recommend to the team of Tony Rivero and Lisa Fink, because one of the things that we will do, both Rivero and I, is that Mr. Rivero and I should say, is that we will work to secure the borders, to make sure that the elections are transparent and audible so everybody can trust it no matter what the outcome has come out. Also, in regards to the economy, cutting taxes, cutting government regulations, allowing people to be free to do what they want to do in regards to entrepreneurship, into whatever skill, trade that they want to go into, to remove those barriers that unfortunately we are seeing with high inflation, what we're seeing with high taxes and high regulations. And we need to make it more free for Arizonans to be able to achieve the American dream. And so I'm asking you for your vote. I'm asking for you to vote for Tony Rivero to be able to represent LD27 so that we can achieve together what Arizona can, its full potential. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our debate. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the November 5th general election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. Thank you.